I'm Ric Edelman. What do you say to someone who's working 3 jobs and still can't save? Wow, let me have 'em. And if you want to send your kids to college, but you also want to retire, which is more important? I'll let you know. Also, will the robots of tomorrow be our assistants or our replacements? Maybe you want to start planning for your retirement now. All that and much more, including Jean with The Other Side of Money, on this edition of The Truth About Money.
This program is funded in part by TD Ameritrade. At TD Ameritrade, we support investors and independent registered investment advisors every day, providing access to tools, research, and educational resources that help you pursue your goals with confidence.
I'm Ed Burns. I've spent a lot of time around cameras. However, I've never actually swallowed one before. Till now. It's a camera the size of a pill that lets your doctor see inside of you. That's kind of awesome.
Technology is evolving. We believe the way to invest should evolve as well. A prospectus is available at 1-800-iShares, which includes investment objectives, risks, fees, expenses, and other information that you should read and consider carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal.
I'm Ric Edelman, and the truth about money is that you can usually find places to cut expenses in order to increase your savings. And if you can't, then maybe you should look harder. It's just dollars and cents.
Hey, what's up, Rick? My name is Austin Schrader, and I am working 3 jobs. I'm a work-study, I work at a fast food restaurant, and I'm an independent contractor doing screen printing, but I can't seem to save any money. Do you have any advice for me?
I'm hopeful that the reason you have those 3 jobs is that you're busy going to college and that you're going to end up with a degree that will lead to a career that will enable you to make more money than you're making right now. I sure hope that's the case, and if that is the case, you're doing all the right things, and you're doing what all college students do. You're struggling. That's part of the game, it's part of the inevitability, and you'll eventually, literally, work your way out of that mess. If you're not, however, going to college to get a degree which will lead to a better career and higher income, what are you waiting for? Get thee to college, get an education, and that will put you on the right track. You see, your best investment is in yourself. By investing in yourself and your own skills, you will generate the earning power that will be far bigger and better than any investment you might ever choose. And here's another question.
Hi, Rick. My name's Matthew. I'm working and going to school, and my company just started a 401k. I'm 19. Should I invest in it, or am I too young?
You're never too young. This is really exciting. To be able to participate in a 401k at work at age 19 is awesome. I want you to join that plan, and I want you to participate to the maximum that your boss lets you. You're getting a massively wonderful head start compared to everyone else, and oh my goodness gracious, it's going to translate into huge profits and rewards for you in the future. Everybody else is going to be incredibly jealous of you that you were able to start saving for your retirement at such a young age. Join the 401k, start saving right now, put all of those savings into stock funds inside the plan, and don't stop until you're 65. We go from New York to Hollywood to ask just one question, Celebrity Edition. What's the best financial advice you ever got?
Do not spend any more than you make. And, mind your pennies and make sure you save. It's the best advice I ever got. My father worried all of my adult life about money burning a hole in my pocket. It was borrow from Peter to pay Paul. It's the way it was. And my saving grace, when it came to money, was to marry my wife, Connie Chung, who is making a lot more money than I was and who basically supported me for the first 4 or 5 years of our marriage.
I wish I'd received great financial advice, but I didn't. When I was growing up, there were 2 things you didn't talk about, sex and money. Well, sex came out just fine, but money, I had to reteach myself.
Isn't it amazing how people will talk about sex before they're willing to talk about money? Another thing they don't like to talk about is how to pay for their kids' college. And yet I was asked just that question in a recent financial seminar at Maryland's historic Weinberg Theater.
Hi, Rick. I am a single parent. I'm 55. I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. I've got a Roth IRA and I've got a savings account for their college fund. I have a 401k for my retirement. My question is, would I be better off with 2 529 plans or saving for retirement and just letting them deal with the college on their own?
See, this is the reason I tell people to have dogs. Anybody here a cat lover? Yeah, so are my dogs. They love cats. You've asked 2 really important questions, so let's take them one at a time. You thought you only asked 1, but I heard 2. First, given the choice, in an ideal world, of course, if you could, you would save both for your retirement and their college. But let's face it, in the real world, that is often difficult for many of us to do. So given the choice, which should you choose? Do you take the available money you have and save for your retirement, or instead do you save it for college? There is a right and wrong answer to this. Let's turn this into a little bit of audience participation. How many believe the correct answer is to save for your retirement instead of their college? Raise your hand. And how many say save for their college instead of your retirement? Boy, none of you like your children. You're absolutely correct. You must save for your retirement first. And there's a very simple reason for this. When you buy a house, you can live in the house during the 30 years that you're paying for it through a 30-year mortgage. When you are going to college and you graduate, you can spend a 30-year career paying for that education. But when you're in retirement, you cannot be paying for retirement. Retirement must be pre-funded. You have to have all of the money needed already saved by the time you get to that age, whether it's 60 or 65 or 70 or what have you. So for that reason, you must divert all of your available resources to retirement planning, even if that means not saving a nickel for college. Now, a lot of parents struggle with this. You consider it your parental obligation to do whatever it takes to get your children off on the right start in life, and you will sacrifice to whatever extent you can. And we have seen parents do these things. We've seen parents liquidate their retirement accounts at work. We've seen them take second jobs. We've seen them get home equity loans against their home and borrow against the equity to come up with the cash necessary. I've seen them co-sign loans with student loans and otherwise to get the kids through college. Big mistake, really big mistake. What you need to do instead is start having conversations with the children today. Your kids are already young teenagers. These conversations ideally should occur at age 3. Let these kids realize what their future holds for them so they understand 2 things. Number 1, they need to contribute to the cost of college. They need to finance it and pay for it themselves, either by building up wealth between ages 3 and 18, or through student loans, what have you. And second, they need to minimize the cost of college in the first place. Going to a community college for the first 2 years and then getting guaranteed admission into that 4-year school. I'll tell you this, no employer, you tell me if this ever happened to you, no employer has ever asked, did you go all 4 years to the college where you graduated? All they ask is, where's the school of the degree? The fact that you spent 2 years in a community college, they don't even realize. And let's face it, we all know the truth about freshman year of college. It's nothing more than 13th grade. Here's another statistic. 1/3 of college freshmen drop out. Less than half of college students ever graduate. So do you really want to spend 50 grand only to have that kid quit? So for all of these reasons, we need to get the children involved in what this will prove to be one of their biggest financial decisions of their lives. Early and often, at their ages of 11 and 13, engage them in this right now to let them know, as much as you would love to pay their way, it's just not realistic. So that's first. Second, to divert as much money as possible to your retirement, because if you don't, in your retirement, you'll be living with them. I once was at a financial planning conference, several hundred, about 500-600 advisors, and one of the sessions that we were having was on college planning. What are the latest college planning strategies? And there was a guy giving this presentation. The whole audience is filled with financial planners like me. And one of the advisors stands up and he says, "Can you tell me what you're doing for your kids' college educations?" And the guy thought about it for a minute, and then he said, "At some point, I realized my children are not college material."
A mortgage loan is based on A, your assets, B, your income, C, your expenses, or D, the value of the house. We'll be right back with the answer.
Will you become obsolete? And is there profit in this brave new world? Robotics expert Neil Jacobstein says the possibilities are limitless. What is artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence is a subfield of computer science, and it has to do with problem solving and emulating human performance in work that models the world and allows these machines that we build to perform like humans, not entirely like humans, but in narrow ways like humans, to do problem solving that emulates human performance.
Do you naturally link AI with robotics?
I actually see them as interrelated because artificial intelligence is what's used to power the intelligence of robots. So we can use AI techniques to help robots navigate around the world and to make decisions in real time and to act like intelligent robots instead of robots that bang into walls.
There's a lot of science fiction about the use of robotics, and there's the dark side. People fear robots being autonomous, being able to make their own decisions, and to the potential detriment of Americans, of humans. Is this a real fear?
Well, I think being appropriately concerned about it is okay. I think that for the most part, robots are under human control. Certainly military robots today have humans in the loop, and as we go forward, I think we're going to give more and more autonomy to machines, but we'll also give them rules of engagement, and we'll give them, in the long run, a sense of ethics, a pretty deep sense of ethics. In fact, they may end up being more ethical than humans are.
How so?
Well, humans are faulty in their execution of ethics that they know about.
We tend to rationalize.
Right, and we have lots of bugs and biases in our cognition. And robots will take their ethical constraints very literally.
Whether people are in favor of the notion of robotics or not, there's no question they are in our future. But people sometimes wonder how far off into the future. When do you see Rosie the robot, the more traditionally conceptualized notion of a robot?
Well, I think that'll take a while. We underestimate how difficult it is to produce a really useful household robot that can be a companion and can empty the dishwasher and load the dishwasher and things like that. Those are surprisingly sophisticated tasks. On the other hand, I think we'll have robot cars, and I think probably within the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see them all over the place.
And if we're going to have robots on the highway, then we probably aren't terribly far off of having robots elsewhere.
We'll have robots certainly doing light industrial tasks in very small businesses that used to not be able to afford robots for doing robot assembly tasks.
So that strikes me as perhaps a little disruptive as well, because the robot just puts somebody out of work.
Well, perhaps robotics and AI will be disruptive to labor, both blue-collar labor and white-collar labor. Well, I think that we will end up generating huge amounts of wealth with exponential technologies, not just AI and robotics, but also synthetic biology and nanotechnology. We're going to generate astronomical amounts of wealth.
So you see this as a positive development going forward, despite the disruptive nature it will create?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of disruptive interim, but I think eventually we'll work through it, and people will end up leading lives that are higher quality of life, with better health, and more time for leisure.
What does this mean for investors?
Well, it means that they should be very careful about their timing of their investments. Today, it's around predictive analytics and being able to do narrow artificial intelligence. As time goes on, we'll have smarter and smarter machines like Watson, IBM's Watson and beyond, that can do extraordinary things and begin to exhibit the broad, deep, and subtle intelligence that we associate with human intelligence. But eventually, it will be about molecular robotics. And those companies are just starting up now, and they'll really kick in the next decade or so. In the biological area, synthetic biology is going to explode in the near term. And nanotechnology will be exploding in the 10 to 15-year horizon. So I think it's wildly exciting.
Thanks very much, Neil, for spending time with us.
Absolutely.
A mortgage loan is based on B, your income.
All right, you've got a good income and you're saving for retirement. Good for you. Now, how do you invest your money once you're in retirement? I hear that question every week on my radio show. We're going to talk with Jeremy from Canada. How can we help you?
Well, I've recently departed an employer that was with about 15 years. I've got about $140,000 in 401k there, and I've heard a couple different options on rolling that over directly to an IRA managed by someone like yourself, into a 401k with my new employer, or to a Roth 401k with my new employer.
All right, you're acting and sounding an awful lot like a resident of the United States.
I am. I'm actually working in Calgary for a couple of years.
Oh, okay, but you are paying taxes under U.S. tax law.
I'm paying under both. Yes.
Okay. And that matters an awful lot, because if you were, in fact, a Canadian resident living in Canada under strictly Canadian tax law, then the advice we would give would have to change. So, Anderson?
Well, yeah, you've got the choices of rolling it to a 401k, your existing 401k with your new employer, to a Roth 401k, and then to an IRA. Our advice would be to go to an IRA where you have the flexibility of managing it. If you move it to the new employer 401k, you're going to be stuck with their investment options. You're going to have limitations there that you simply will not have with an individual IRA. The Roth, I wouldn't do with $140,000, because you're just going to pay a boatload of taxes right up front for that privilege.
Yeah, let's understand the whole point of a Roth. The reason that the Roth exists is not the reason that people think the Roth exists. It appears, from a consumer's perspective, that the Roth exists so that you can have the money grow tax-deferred, and when you pull it out in retirement, it's entirely tax-free. Wow. Unlimited ability to generate tax-free income in retirement. That's what consumers think is the purpose of the Roth. Not true. In fact, the real purpose of the Roth is to get you to pay taxes now, because Congress wants the revenue now. Congress doesn't want to wait until you're retired to collect its taxes. Congress wants you to pay the taxes today, and that's what the Roth does. If you take your money, Jeremy, and convert it from your 401k to a Roth account, you're going to pay taxes right now on that $140 grand, and that's what Congress wants. They tease you with the promise that the future withdrawals will be tax-free because you're paying the taxes now, but quite frankly, it has two flaws. Number one, that doesn't increase your wealth. So even if you were to do it, and even if Congress were to honor the obligation, it doesn't make you richer. And second, I don't believe Congress will honor the obligation. I think you're going to end up paying the taxes twice if you do it that way.
Well, that's my next question. It doesn't sound like you're quite vilifying the Roth 401k, but...
No, all you're doing is paying now instead of later. So let's really simplify it. It's not a question of, do you pay a small amount now versus a big amount later? No, 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 no. It's real simple. Do you pay now or do you pay later? Obviously, if the two are equal, and they are, paying later is a whole lot better than paying now. End of story. Want to laugh all the way to the bank? These comics will help.
Like, I had money one time in my life when I was in Korea, right? Because our money's still good in Korea, so that's one of the few places that we still, we're still kicking their ass. I was in Korea. Let me tell you what I did. I went to the hotel. I gave a girl $100 at the front desk to transfer into Korean money. She gave me 115,000 Korean dollars. I was a brand new brother. You couldn't tell me nothing. I had $115,000 cash. You couldn't tell me nothing. People were coming up to me. How you doing? I'm like, I'm rich, dog. You don't just talk to rich people like that. Know your place, peasant. I was walking around, my head held high. I was different. And then I bought a Snicker bar. That shit was $12,000.
If you could ask a financial advisor just one question, what would it be? Here's one we hear from a lot of people. What estate planning mistakes do you commonly see people make?
The biggest mistake is they delay it. So they either don't have a will or trust when they come in the door, or they have a will and they haven't reviewed it in such a long time. I had a family that came in once, took a look and said, oh my gosh, the guardian, that's our neighbor down the street that we haven't talked to in 10 years.
It has to be people trying to do it themselves. I talk to people a lot and they say, oh, my parents added me to the house or my mom added me to the house so we don't have to go through probate, not realizing the unintended consequence of they're going to pay significantly more in taxes now because they won't get what's called a step-up in basis.
Probably the biggest mistake in the estate planning process is only planning for what would happen at their death. What we see even more a challenge is how to deal with incapacitation. People don't want to face the fact that they are going to be unable to manage their own affairs, and so they don't put the necessary vehicles in place. You really need to include a durable power of attorney in your estate planning documents.
One of the things, perhaps they may have set up a trust, but haven't had the trust funded. So maybe perhaps they have the trust, but their accounts are not registered in the name of the trust. So that doesn't really help if something were to happen. So we make sure that if you have a trust and you want to make sure that it's funded and not just doing one part of it, doing the entire thing.
Right now, take a look around. Is the area around you neat and clean, or is it looking like a debris field? In case you've got too much stuff lying around, here's my wife and business partner, Jean, with some tips on clearing the clutter in the other side of money.
We all have way too much stuff. And I don't know about you, but when there's a lot of stuff sitting around, it makes us anxious, whether we are aware of it or not. Decide that you want to clear the clutter. And decide that you're just going to start taking a tour of your house. First, walk into your house and observe what you're seeing. What's there? Are there piles that have to be read? Are there piles of clothes in the laundry room that have to be ironed and put away? Where do you stack your stuff when you don't want to deal with it? The second thing we need to do is decide that we wish to get rid of some of this stuff and or organize it, put it away. It doesn't need to be out. Because what we want is to walk into a room and not feel overpowered by the stuff in it. So, okay, how do we eat this elephant? How do we go through our house, decide what we're gonna keep, how are we gonna do this? And as Rick and I always talk about, it's one bite at a time. One room at a time, one drawer at a time. Decluttering our life on the physical level of all the stuff and the relationship level, it helps us because we're getting rid of the stress. We hold it in our bodies. We're stressed out because there's too much stuff, or I need to be reading these magazines, or I need to write this person. If it's around us, it's creating stress. If it's a toxic relationship, it's stressful. We need to get rid of the stress in our life. We need to be happy. We need to make changes.
I think maybe I'll be spending this weekend cleaning out the garage. Some final thoughts about our other subjects. Robots will be taking over at least some of our jobs. But Neil Jacobstein says they're also going to generate enormous wealth. So what's frightening may also be profitable. And that's the truth about money. I'm Ric Edelman. See you next time. To learn more about the topics we discussed on this episode and a chance to ask your questions, visit our website at truthaboutmoneytv.com. And stay connected by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter.